is Chandler Gordon, and this is my persuasive speech. It is April 10th, 2014. My topic is that media falsely portrays cheerleading and that it is a sport. The general purpose is to inform listeners why cheerleading should be considered a sport. We may make it look easy, but like all other sports, it takes hard work and dedication, are the words of Shauna Fox, a typical cheerleader. This quote shows that cheerleading takes work and dedication, along with time and effort. There are so many horrible things said and shown about cheerleaders in today's society that most people believe that all cheerleaders are promiscuous and have no self-respect. Many people have seen multiple movies and television shows such as Bring It On and Bring It On All or Nothing. They try to persuade their viewers to thinking that cheerleading is all about partying, sexual activities, illegal drug usage, and bullies. The qualities being shown in these movies are very unrealistic, and for an actual successful cheerleader, and it makes cheerleading seem as if it's all fun and games, and it's really not. As a cheerleader myself, I feel strongly on this topic, and I feel that statistics and factual information about cheerleading should be brought up and discussed so that cheerleaders can have a chance to be respected and seen as an actual sport in our society. Cheerleading completely follows the definition of a sport. It takes just as much time and effort as any other classified sport and has way more injuries for females than any other sport. Cheerleaders have to practice, dedicate time, and perform just as any other sport does. The research I have found completely contradicts the typical stereotype that is formed by humans today about cheerleaders. Cheerleaders are normally thought of by Americans and other humans around the globe as flirts in skirts. As a cheerleader myself, it gets very annoying to hear things such as this from others when you spend up to 25 hours a week practicing for a competition that's coming up in the following month. The dictionary definition of a sport is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or a team competes against another or others for entertainment. Reading this definition and knowing what really takes place while cheerleading makes me realize that it matches up perfectly with the definition of a sport. Cheerleading definitely takes physical exertion in order to lift and throw girls in the air. Dancing, cheering, stunting, pyramids, it all takes a lot of skill in order to take part in these other things like tumbling, partner stunts, routines, and building pyramids. Most people seem to overlook the fact that cheerleaders practice and go through just as much as regular athletes. Johnny Campbell founded cheerleading in the year 1898, and when he first led Minnesota's university football team and their cheers. Ever since, cheerleading was known to be a support group for a school's athletic teams. Over time, cheerleading has progressed, and many have found that there is a high increase in participation in competitive cheer. This type of cheerleading was uncommon, however, it is now becoming very popular. The majority of cheerleading squads don't wish to participate in competitive cheerleading, which is one of the main reasons why cheerleading is not considered a sport by most. The American Association of Cheerleading Coaches and Administration states that recently some cheerleading coaches and cheerleaders, upset with the lack of funding and respect for their programs, felt that getting cheerleading recognized as a sport would resolve issues. They believe that if cheerleading was made an official sport, schools would hire qualified coaches, provide uniforms, pay cheerleading coaches salaries like other sport coaches, and the community would see cheerleaders as the athletes they are. Administrators and activity associations view the change in a slightly different light. While cheerleading as a sport, there could be state championships and the possibility of helping to meet the Title IX requirements for gender equity. Also, according to Drace, officially classifying cheerleading as a collegiate sport would lead to more money, better coaches, cheerleading-specific trainers, and a more balanced playing field. Cheerleading not only falls under the category of a sport because of the issues it would resolve, it actually has the same guidelines and rules that regular sports have to follow. According to the American Association of Cheerleading, most states added the restrictions that go along with being a sport, like transfer rules, limiting practice time, fundraising restrictions, and limits on competition, travel, and participation in national competitions. In extreme cases, cheerleading squads were required to compete at least the same number of events as they cheered for to meet the requirements for sports status. That meant that they either drastically had to increase the number of competitive events or lower the number of support events that they were required to go to. As a cheerleader, one main concern for having cheerleading considered a sport is an academic scholarship that can be granted to student athletes. Dre states that Kentucky is a 13-time national championship school that offers scholarships and other benefits that other student athletes receive. It is stated that if schools such as UCLA had a scholarship program, they'd be able to recruit more advanced cheerleaders to their school. There is such a wide variety of people who are interested in participating in cheerleading in college. However, the typical college student cannot afford to pay everything for their books, tuition, and also cheerleading fees on top of it. If colleges supported the idea of having cheerleading scholarships, then I feel that cheerleading would begin to expand its popularity and gain supporters of this activity actually being known as a sport. Not only does cheerleading follow guidelines such as every other sport, it is actually known to have an extremely high injury rate. According to Molly Veiling, a coach for UCLA, states her reasoning is cheerleading being a sport in an ESPN article on cheerleading being justified as a sport. She states, "Try it for one day. Honestly, there's no way you can't just go out there and act stupid. It's a dangerous activity, and there's absolutely no way that if you did it for one day, you wouldn't come back saying it's a sport." Cheerleading is known to have the most injuries over any other sport. According to the University of North Carolina's National Center for Catastrophic Events, each year more females are severely injured in cheerleading than athletes in any other sport. The Stop Sport Injuries Organization states that the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission estimates that cheerleading led to 16,000 emergency room visits in 2002. While not as frequent as injuries in other sports, cheerleading injuries tend to be more severe, making up over half of the catastrophic injuries in female sports. Cheerleading injuries affect all areas of the body, most commonly the wrist, the shoulders, the neck, and the head. The fitness section of MSNBC reported a catastrophic cheerleading injury to Laura Jackson at her cheerleading tryout. After her performance of her cheer, she wanted to demonstrate her gymnastics ability of a running back tuck, which is a backflip. And it says that she doesn't remember exactly what went wrong, but her peers said that she didn't make it all the way around and her neck hit the ground, and she skid so hard that a piece of her ponytail ripped from her scalp. No one in the room realized how grave her injury was, but Laura had broken her top two vertebrae, and the crushed bones kept squeezing against her brainstem, which made her heart stop and start and then stop and start again. And while several people in the gymnasium that day knew how to do CPR, no one knew that in that moment that's what Laura desperately needed. They thought that because my heart was beating, I was okay, is what Laura recalled. Instead, she's now a quadriplegic, unable to move any muscles from the neck down. The American Sports Journal of Medicine gives suggestions for reducing these types of injuries by enhancing the number of training of spotters, mandating floor mats for complex stunts, restricting complex stunts when surfaces are wet, and encouraging safety certifications of coaches. Pyramids and basket tosses should be limited to only really experienced cheerleaders, and they should only be practiced with spotters and landing mats. Laura Jackson's incident is just one of the several near-death experiences that have taken place while cheerleading that make people wonder how anyone in the world can consider this activity that's this intense not a sport. Along with all the evidence that shows cheerleading clearly being defined as a sport, people are still hesitant to actually agree with it becoming a sport nationally. Cheerleading completely follows the definition of a sport, takes just as much effort as any other classified sport, and has way more injuries for females than any other sport. And actually doing research on this topic can hopefully persuade people into believing that cheerleaders work hard enough to be recognized by all as a sport.